Hello! In this video clip, we're going to look at the technique of solving quadratic equations by taking square roots. So this technique is a little bit different from solving by factoring or solving using the quadratic formula in that we do not set the equation equal to 0 as our first step. What we do is we're going to follow these steps. We're going to first isolate the expression that is being squared. Now this can be just a variable that's being squared, or it can be an expression in and of itself, like a binomial expression. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to solve for x. Now, if we've isolated that expression that's being squared, we are going to probably take square roots of both sides. So when we do that and we're solving for x, if there's an x involved or variable involved, we need to remember to include the plus or minus as part of our solution. Then we go ahead and simplify, and recall we are solving quadratics, so most likely we're going to get two answers. There are some situations where there would be no solution or only one solution, but most of the time we get two solutions. And as with any solving equations, it's always good to go back and check your answers. So let's look at some examples. Okay, so we're going to start with this example. Let's get rid of this. All right. Okay, so let's start with this one. 2x squared minus 3 is equal to 125. Now, according to our steps, or the first thing we're supposed to do is isolate what is being squared. And in this case, what's being squared is the x. So we want to take this expression, that x squared, and get it all by itself initially. So there's a couple things we need to get rid of. We need to definitely get rid of the 3 and definitely get rid of the 2. So let's go ahead and add 3 to both sides. And by doing that, we would have 2x squared is equal to 128. And next we would get rid of the 2, and we would do that by division. We would undo the multiplication by using the inverse operation, and we would have x squared is equal to 64. Now we have isolated the expression being squared, so we are prepared to take square roots of both sides. So when we do that, we have the square root of x squared is equal to plus or minus the square root of 64. And we have got to include that plus or minus because we are not sure which of our solutions would satisfy, and in truth both of them do. That square root of a expression being squared just cancels those. Those are inverse operations. And we're left with our solution. X is equal to plus or minus the square root of 64, which we know to be 8. Okay, so our solution set is negative 8 and positive 8. Okay, so there's one example. One more example we'll look at would be something that is a little more interesting. You know, in math speak, a little more interesting always means maybe a little more difficult. Okay, so what is being squared in this equation? Well, we've got this whole thing being squared here. So we want to isolate this. Okay, so we see this 3 hanging on in front, so let's divide out the 3. And those would cancel, right? So we would have 3x minus 4 quantity squared is equal to 54 divided by 3, which I believe is 18. Okay, so now the expression being squared is isolated. So let's go ahead and then take the square root of both sides. So we would have the square root of 3x minus 4, quantity squared, is equal to plus or minus, because of this variable, the square root of 18. Okay, so we have, on the left-hand side, it's easy. We've got the square root and a square root on the same expression. They are inverses, so they undo each other. So we have 3x minus 4 on the left. On the right-hand side, we've got plus or minus the square root of 18, which simplifies to plus or minus 3 square root of 2. Okay, so now we need to isolate this x. We're still solving for x. We need to continue until that x is by itself. So we can add the 4 to both sides to get rid of this 4. You can add it on the other side of the equation. But if you're going to add it on the right-hand side, most of the time we add it right in front of that plus or minus. Okay, so we're going to say 3x is equal to 4 plus or minus 3 radical 2. Okay, and so now what we're left with is the 3x expression, which we, of course, can get rid of the 3 by division. So we end up with x is equal to 4 plus or minus 3 radical 2 all over 3. So our solution set here, we have two solutions. We have 4 plus 3 radical 2 over 3, and also 4 minus 3 radical 2, all divided by 3. Those would be our answers in this case. All right, that's it for solving by taking square roots. See you next time.